Yeah, we're off. Hi, guys.
Moving home? Don't do it alone. Need some space? We know a place for every stage of life.
For you today. So we have been
Hi, yeah, bye. Good to see ya. Hey, Phil. Good to see you, mate.
Hey everybody, Josh Peck here with a quick update video for you today. So we have been covering the prophecy of the popes with the new Pope Leo the 14th, I believe, and something big, possibly big, just happened that could relate to the prophecy of the popes. In case you're not familiar with the prophecy of the popes, I'm going to give you a brief recap of it in just a minute. But before I get to that, if you could hit the subscribe button and click the bell to turn on all notifications, that way you know when a new video drops, and it really helps us out. Also, if you want the audio only podcast version of this, you can go to joshpeck.substack.com. And there I also have the blog version of all my videos. I'm not going to do it with this one because this one I'm pretty much just going to read from an article that already exists that you can look at. And I don't want to repost, text of somebody else's article. So I don't have a downloadable PDF or a blog post for this one. It's just this video and the audio only version. And if you want early access to all videos that we do, that's at dailyrenegade.com. Not only is it early access, but you get the full video as well. A lot of times I only put up about half the video on YouTube because of censorship issues. So dailyrenegade.com and joshpeck.substack.com, all of those links are in the description below. Okay, so in case you're not familiar, this is going to be real brief. The prophecy of the popes is attributed to Saint Malachy in the 12th century, and it's a series of 112 cryptic Latin phrases supposedly predicting the popes from Celestine II in the year 1143 to the end of the papacy. Many people believe that it ends with the false prophet and stuff like that. So each phrase symbolically describes a pope's characteristics, origin, or reign. Published in 1595, its authenticity is debated, with some believing it's real and some scholars believing it's a 16th century forgery. But the prophecy suggests that the final pope, Peter the Roman, will lead during a time of tribulation, possibly signaling the end of the church or the world. So the last prophecy concerning the final pope reads this: in the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will sit Peter the Roman, who will pasture his sheep in many tribulations. And when these things are finished, the city of Seven Hills will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge his people. The end. Now, in previous videos, I said, now that we've got Pope Leo, I was skeptical that anything having to do with him actually fulfills this prophecy because I couldn't really find anything that was strong enough. And we've talked about that a lot on this channel, but besides just saying, well, because he doesn't have any, besides the fact that he's Pope, which Catholics believe that popes carry on the tradition of Peter, so a lot of them are like Peter's successor. So besides the fact that he's just Pope, you could say Peter about any Pope then. And just the fact that he's Pope, you could say that about the Roman part too. Besides that, what about Peter the Roman specifically ties to this pope? Why this pope and no other pope? And I couldn't find really anything. Well, today he actually came out and said something. And if this continues, if this kind of thing continues, we could see how he might actually end up fulfilling the Peter the Roman prophecy, maybe. So this comes from CatholicNewsAgency.com. Somebody just sent this to me in email, so thank you so much for that. I'm not going to give out names or anything to protect the person's privacy, but thank you so much for emailing me this story. And the headline is Leo XIV tells Mayor of Rome, "Today I can say that through you and with you, I am Roman," which is crazy. So I'm gonna go through the story with you. So with those words, Pope Leo addressed the mayor of Rome, Roberto Gualtieri, don't know how to pronounce that, but who greeted him just minutes before he made way to the Basilica of St. John Lateran to take possession of the chair of the Bishop of Rome. So the armored Volkswagen SUV transporting the Pope departed from the Vatican around 4 p.m. local time and headed for the Basilica of St. John Lateran, the Cathedral of Rome, where he was scheduled to be installed as Bishop of Rome after celebrating Mass at 5 p.m. You know, no one gets into full-time ministry to make money. At least no one should. Given that, Daily Renegade accepts donations from those who care to help keep us going. Now, because Daily Renegade does not want to be told by the government what we can and can't say, we're not 501c3. So your donations are not tax deductible, but that's not why you're giving anyway, to get something back for yourself. Speaking of which, we here are never going to promise that if you donate, God will reward you with even more financial success. We're not about making promises for God here. But what I can promise is your donations are very much appreciated and help the continuation of everything we do here at Daily Renegade to reach the world with the truth of the Bible. Also, as many of you know, my son Nathan has had some very serious medical issues that we are treating with good, all natural and holistic remedies. But of course, those are very expensive and are not covered by insurance. So your donations help go towards his health care as well. If you can't afford to donate, you can always donate your time in prayer, which is far more valuable anyway. Let's be serious. So pray for our wisdom, pray for God's guidance for us, and that we never lose focus on what's really important, which is using Daily Renegade as a light of truth that the world so desperately needs right now, especially in these times. As always, thank you so much for your generosity, and I pray God blesses you greatly. And this just happened today. I'm looking at the date and time of this article. This just came out an hour ago. So this is breaking news. This is why you want to subscribe to my channel and get a membership at Daily Renegade so you can be up to date on this stuff. So before arriving to the Basilica, and if you want this, again, if you want this article, if you want to look at it, it's at CatholicNewsAgency.com. But before arriving at the Basilica, the first major Christian house of worship built in Rome after Emperor Constantine.
Hi, Shawnee. Good to see you.
AD 313. The
I was just looking up videos next to play.
Piazza del Arasuli, I don't know. At the foot of the Capitoline Hill steps, where the main entrance to the Palazzo Senatorio, the seat of Rome's municipal government, is located. There, Gualtieri welcomed the Pope. Pope Leo said, quote, "Shortly after the election, I told the brothers and sisters gathered in St. Peter's Square that I am with them, a Christian, and for them, a bishop. Today, in a special way, I can say that through you and with you, I am Roman," end quote. And he said that drawing a great ovation from those present. So he said that. He called himself a Roman in St. Peter's Square, and he just did that today. Could this be the fulfillment of the Peter the Roman? Could you know? Maybe this is if that prophecy has any validity to it. And again, I'm waiting for evidence, so I'm still on the fence with it. I'm open to it, but I also don't want to make something out of nothing. It goes on to say, before various civil and military officials, Pope Leo XIV emphasized the spiritual and social dimensions of his episcopal mission. He said, quote, "As I officially begin my ministry as shepherd of this diocese, I feel the serious yet passionate responsibility to serve all its members with the faith of the people of God and the common good of society foremost in my heart," end quote. He also stressed his commitment to collaboration with local administrative institutions. Quote, "We are collaborators, each within our own institutional sphere," end quote. Pope Leo spoke of the historic mission of the Catholic Church in the Italian capital and highlighted how for 2 millennia the Church has lived out its apostolic mission in Rome, quote, "by proclaiming the gospel of Christ and committing itself to charity," end quote. It goes on, quote, "Educating the young, helping those who suffer, caring for the marginalized, and nurturing the arts are expressions of our commitment to human dignity, one we must uphold at all times, especially toward the little ones, the weak, and the poor," he added, end quote. And it's interesting, him talking about like being a shepherd and taking care of all these people. And I'm going to read the prophecy again. "In the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will sit Peter the Roman, who will pasture his sheep in many tribulations. And when these things are finished, the city of 7 hills will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge his people," the end. That's really interesting with some of the things that he's saying here. Speaking about the Jubilee of Hope, inaugurated by his predecessor, Pope Francis, Pope Leo voiced his gratitude for, quote, "the commitment of the city administration, for which I express my heartfelt thanks," end quote. Finally, before giving the apostolic blessing to those present, Pope Leo shared his hopes that Rome, quote, "unparalleled in the richness of its historical and artistic heritage," end quote, "may always also be distinguished by, quote, those values of humanity and civilization that draw their life force from the gospel," end quote. Now, before he spoke, the mayor thanked him for renewing the tradition of the meeting at Piazza dell'Era Soli, saying the gesture was yet another sign of the Holy Father's affection for the Italian capital, his affection for Rome. Gualtieri described it as, quote, "a reaffirmation of the deep bond between Rome and the universal dimension of the Church," end quote. Now, this is interesting. The last pope to take part in this greeting was Paul VI, who met with then Mayor Glauco della Porta, and this was in 1978. It says in 1978, the gesture was meant to be repeated, but John Paul I died a month after his election and never made the official visit to Rome's City Hall. Gualtieri emphasized that this bond has nourished the city for centuries with, quote, "culture, ethical values, and shared responsibility, especially in building peace, the highest calling of Rome," end quote. He expressed gratitude for Pope Leo's first words calling for an end to war across the world. Hey, everyone. You know, concerning the economically unstable times that we live in, it is a great idea to convert some of your savings into real money. Now, there is a big difference between real money and what we call.
Guys, I was going to do Gary Wayne today, Gary Wayne special. I clicked onto him. He's been cloned. You watch this, guys. Tell me this is. Wait till I find. Hang on. Check this out. This is Gary Wayne now.
Hey Aussies, that hola.
Oh, come on,
created the easiest way to see a doctor 24/7.
Cadbury Dairy Milk Minis. They'll be huge in your house.
You're going to say, just for the audience who's never heard of Gary Wayne before, Gary Wayne is a Christian contrarian, which I think is awesome. He's the author of 2 books, The Genesis 6 Conspiracy, about secret societies, and Descendants of Giants. The Genesis 6 Conspiracy Part 2, which is about prehistory of giants and end-time prophecy. And you are the only episode that we've ever done where I had to take a break in the middle of it to make sure my brain.
What are you seeing, guys?
Do you remember that?
I do.
I was like,
do.
I'm having coffee, and you guys can just.
He's been cloned.
Or I had to take a break in the middle of it to make sure my brain didn't fall apart. Do you remember that?
I do.
I was like, I gotta get.
That looks about 20 years older than the Gary Wayne I saw 6 months ago. Look at that, guys. I think he's been cloned.
Coffee, and you guys need to settle down. I'm gonna go get some.
Yeah, I was actually hoping Gary would cover my therapy bills after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
felt
blows
so
my
stupid.
brain, dude.
For 2 hours straight, twice.
Yeah. We were just talking before. You said you're getting out on.
There he is there. Look how old he is, guys. He's old man there. Don't know what happened. Where was that one? There it was there.
We call money, which is actually currency. So our dollar is currency, which fluctuates. Real money, like silver, is a store of value over time. The best way to think of it is like this. If you had saved $1,000 in cash back in the late 60s, the late 1960s, that $1,000 would still be $1,000 today, but it would.
Don't push your money, mate.
The upcoming Youth Jubilee. Rome, he said, is committed to, quote, being a more just, sustainable, and inclusive city with special attention to the peripheries and the most vulnerable, end quote. Acknowledging, quote, the value of collaboration with the church, end quote, particularly with local parish projects aimed at dignifying the lives of all citizens, including migrants and the poor. The mayor expressed his hope for the city.
Sean, he's got a great book, Genesis 6 Conspiracy, and he delves into the fairies being sons of the fallen angels and things like that. He gets right into it. He's very interesting. I'll do this tomorrow, actually.
And the Pope worked together for, quote, a new politics, new relationships between peoples, and a more humane social model, end quote. Finally, Gualtieri declared, quote, we are happy that Rome is now your city, end quote, and assured the Pope that the capital will be, quote, a loyal ally in your pastoral mission, end quote. So you got the mayor here saying to the Pope, Rome is now your city, and this Pope is calling himself a Roman now. I mean, he literally said it. Let me find the quote again. He said, let me look for the whole thing. Well, the headline just says, you know, the quote, today I can say that through you and with you, I am Roman. Yeah, he said this, quote, shortly after the election, I told the brothers and sisters gathered in St. Peter's Square that I am with them, a Christian, and for them, a bishop. Today, in a special way, I can say that through you and with you, I am Roman. He's calling himself Roman. The mayor is saying that the city of Rome is his, basically, that Rome is his. So could this be, and again, this kind of meeting hasn't even happened since 1978. So could this potentially be at least the beginning of the fulfillment of the Peter?
Hey, I was over here. Good to see you.
Still, I don't know about the Peter part because his name's not Peter. If it was, then that would be a dead ringer. And you know, everybody tells me, yeah, but the popes take on the succession of Peter, so they're kind of looked at as Peter. But again, you could say that about any pope. So what is it about this one where that name Peter connects? I mean, it seems like it would have to be more than just the fact that he's pope, because that's any pope. Seems like it would have to be more specific to something with this guy individually. But I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it is just that, and then this fact that he's calling himself Roman now, and the mayor of Rome is saying that Rome is your city now. Maybe that is, you know, the whole bishop thing. Maybe that's the fulfillment. I don't know. So, like I've said, and if you ever get any like tips like this, feel free to email them my way. My email is joshpeckdisclosure@gmail.com. So again, another big thank you to the individual that sent this my way. Like I said before, anytime news breaks on this, we will cover it on this channel. Now, I'm not giving validity to this prophecy, and I'm not saying that it's not real. I'm waiting and seeing what happens with it. But this is very, very, very interesting with the whole prophecy. So as always, I want to know what you think. Do you think that this is enough to potentially point to the prophecy of the popes, and specifically that last prophecy about the final pope? Could this be enough that makes Pope Leo a good candidate for Peter the Roman, or is this just too flimsy? It's not enough. It's not, it's not enough to say one way or another. However you feel about it, I would love to know. Leave your comments in the comment section wherever you're viewing this. And again, please don't forget to subscribe. Check us out on dailyrenegade.com. Check out Josh Peck at substack.com. I also got a couple of new books out called The Final Cataclysm, Volume 1 and 2. ProphecyWatchers.com is absolutely the best place you can get that. And by the way, if you do have the books, even if you didn't get them on Amazon, if you could leave me an honest review on Amazon, that would be great. I've had some people give me 1-star reviews for kind of ridiculous reasons, and that happens sometimes. People, review bombing isn't.
Apparently that happens in a fast. I was never here. That you get all dizzy and that's part of fasting, I think.
Always true, but sometimes it does happen. Yeah, if you could leave a review on Amazon, that would be great. But get the books at prophecywatchers.com, because why support Jeff Bezos when you can support an awesome prophecy ministry that is really bringing light to the world like no other. So, all right, with that, I will leave you to the rest of your weekend. Hope you're having a great weekend. I'm excited to read your comments, and yeah, that's it. So, without further ado, take care and God bless. If you are a Bible-believing Christian who opposes the kingdom of darkness trying to run the world right now, stuff like that. So each phrase symbolically describes a pope's characteristics, origin, or reign. Published in 1595. Its authenticity is debated, with some believing it's real and some scholars believing it's a 16th century forgery. But the prophecy suggests that the final pope, Peter the Roman, will lead during a time of tribulation, possibly signaling the end of the church or the world. So the last prophecy concerning the final pope reads this: "In the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will sit Peter the Roman, who will pasture his sheep in many tribulations, and when these things are finished, the city of 7 hills will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge his people." The end. Now, in previous videos, I said, now that we've got Pope Leo, I was skeptical that anything having to do with him actually fulfills this prophecy, because I couldn't really find anything that was strong enough. And we've talked about that a lot on this channel, but besides just saying, well, because he doesn't have any, besides the fact that he's Pope, which, Catholics believe that popes carry on the tradition of Peter. So a lot of them are like Peter's successor. So besides the fact that, he's just Pope, you could say Peter about any Pope then. And just the fact that he's Pope, you could say that about the Roman part too. Besides that, what about Peter the Roman specifically ties to this Pope? Why this Pope and no other Pope? And I couldn't find really anything. Well, today he actually came out and said something. And if this continues, if this kind of thing continues, we could see how he might actually end up fulfilling the Peter the Roman prophecy, maybe. So this comes from CatholicNewsAgency.com. Somebody just sent this to me in email, so thank you so much for that. I'm not going to give out names or anything to protect the person's privacy, but thank you so much for emailing me this story. And the headline is, Leo XIV tells Mayor of Rome, "Today I can say that through you and with you, I am Roman," which is crazy. So I'm gonna go through the story with you. So with those words, Pope Leo addressed the mayor of Rome, Roberto Gualtieri, don't know how to pronounce that, but who greeted him just minutes before he made way to the Basilica of St. John Lateran to take possession of the chair of the Bishop of Rome. So the armored Volkswagen SUV transporting the Pope departed from the Vatican around 4 p.m. local time and headed for the Basilica of St. John Lateran, the Cathedral of Rome, where he was scheduled to be installed as Bishop of Rome after celebrating Mass at 5 p.m. And this just happened today. I'm looking at the date and time of this article, this just came out an hour ago, so this is breaking news. This is why you want to subscribe to my channel and get a membership at Daily Renegade, so you can be up to date on this stuff. So before arriving to the Basilica, and if you want this, again, if you want this article, if you want to look at it, it's at CatholicNewsAgency.com. But before arriving at the Basilica, the first major Christian house of worship built in Rome after Emperor Constantine legalized religious freedom in AD 313, the official vehicle stopped at Piazza del Arasoli, I don't know, at the foot of the Capitoline Hill steps, where the main entrance to the Palazzo Senatorio, the seat of Rome's municipal government, is located. There, Gualtieri welcomed the Pope. Pope Leo said, quote, "Shortly after the election, I told the brothers and sisters gathered in St. Peter's Square that I am with them, a Christian, and for them, a bishop. Today, in a special way, I can say that through you and with you, I am Roman," end quote. And he said that drawing a great ovation from those present. So he said that. He called himself a Roman in St. Peter's Square, and he just did that today. Could this be the fulfillment of the Peter the Roman? Could you know? Maybe this is if that prophecy has any validity to it. And again, I'm waiting for evidence, so I'm still on the fence with it. I'm open to it, but I also don't want to make something out of nothing. It goes on to say, before various civil and military officials, Pope Leo XIV emphasized the spiritual and social dimensions of his episcopal mission. He said, quote, "As I officially begin my ministry as shepherd of this diocese, I feel the serious yet passionate responsibility to serve all its members with the faith of the people of God and the common good of society foremost in my heart," end quote. He also stressed his commitment to collaboration with local administrative institutions. Quote, "We are collaborators, each within our own institutional sphere," end quote. Pope Leo spoke of the historic mission of the Catholic Church in the Italian capital and highlighted how for 2 millennia the Church has lived out its apostolic mission in Rome, quote, "by proclaiming the gospel of Christ and committing itself to charity," end quote. It goes on, quote, "Educating the young, helping those who suffer, caring for the marginalized, and nurturing the arts are expressions of our commitment to human dignity, one we must uphold at all times, especially toward the little ones, the weak, and the poor," he added, end quote. And it's interesting him talking about like being a shepherd and taking care of all these people. And I'm going to read the prophecy again. "In the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will sit Peter the Roman, who will pasture his sheep in many tribulations. And when these things are finished, the city of 7 hills will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge his people." The end. That's really interesting with some of the things that he's saying here. Speaking about the Jubilee of Hope, inaugurated by his predecessor, Pope Francis, Pope Leo voiced his gratitude for, quote, "the commitment of the city administration, for which I express my heartfelt thanks," end quote. Finally, before giving the apostolic blessing to those present, Pope Leo shared his hopes that Rome, quote, "unparalleled in the richness of its historical and artistic heritage," end quote, "may always also be distinguished by, quote, those values of humanity and civilization that draw their life force from the gospel," end quote. Now, before he spoke, the mayor thanked him for renewing the tradition of the meeting at Piazza del Arasoli, saying the gesture was yet another sign of the Holy Father's affection for the Italian capital, his affection for Rome. So Gualtieri described it as, quote, "a reaffirmation of the deep bond between Rome and the universal dimension of the Church," end quote. Now, this is interesting. The last pope to take part in this greeting was Paul VI, who met with then Mayor Glauco Della Porta, and this was in 1978. It
Hey,
says
Diane,
in
good to see
1978,
ya.
The gesture was meant to be repeated, but John Paul I died a month after
I'm
his
gonna dock
election
you
and never
2
made
beers.
the official visit to Rome's City Hall. Galtieri emphasized that this bond has nourished the city for centuries with, quote, culture, ethical values, and shared responsibility, especially in building peace, the highest calling of Rome, end quote. He expressed gratitude for Pope Leo's first words calling for an end to war across the world. Galtieri also highlighted the Jubilee of Hope as an opportunity to transform the city and said Rome was especially...
Diane, check this out. I think Gary Wayne's been cloned. I'll just go there for a minute. I'm going to do this tomorrow with Mike from around the world, but here he is here. Watch.
Need a prescription? A
Bloody
referral?
ads.
Or advice? Updoc has you covered. From where? Request a consultation now at updoc.com.au.
Something is amiss.
Oh, come on, ads.
Tell me that you didn't kill it.
We're just talking before. You said you're getting out on some like other shows and non-Christian audiences and just kind of doing. Would you define this as apologetics or just what are you doing?
As a contrarian, you can't be a...
Check that out, Diane. He's aged about 20 years in 6 months. I think he's been cloned. Check it out.
apologetic.
Got it.
I don't think.
Would you define this as apologetics or just what are you doing?
As a contrarian, you can't be an apologetic.
Got it.
I don't think. What I try and do is just clarify things for people. So as a contrarian, I want to know, I want to understand.
Man, he's aged so much in 6 months. That's stunning. What else was I watching? Oh, yeah, it's finishing this one off. No, what was it?
That it's inevitably going to turn out that way. In Daniel chapter 11 and verse...
Diane, could you tell that he didn't look the same though? Did it come through on the laptop?
21. We'll note...
I like this guy, but he's wrong about a couple of things.
Last time, I left off discussing about the Pope's relationship with America, and I believe that America will be the main country.
He does, doesn't he,
the
Diane?
Antichrist will use.
He's got heaps more wrinkles and he looks super tired.
And the main church will be the Roman Catholic Church. That will be Babylon. I believe they are more closely intertwined than you think. It'll soon turn into a church-state system. It'll eventually get there. It'll eventually become a point where the Vatican has an influence on the economics. Right now, it's becoming more American-centered in the economic system. The Pope's job, the Vatican's job, if they're going to influence the economics, like I told you before, they're going to have to ride the beast. They're going to have to ride that main body of the Antichrist. They're going to have to ride America, go with the flow of America. But throughout history, they've always done that. My proof text was Revelation chapter 18, verse 3, that the Vatican will have a huge influence on the economic system. And right now, we're seeing it's more American-centered. Either way, it might turn out sometime in the future where it might become more world-centered because people are getting sick and tired and upset with America, or it will still be American-centered, yet the world will follow America's policies. Now, there are a few interesting notes here when we go to the book of Daniel, chapter 11. Turn to Daniel chapter 11. A few Bible believers have pointed out that in this passage, which generally Bible believers agree in, is the relationship of the Syrians and the Jews regards to the Antichrist ethnicity. The Antichrist ethnicity is Syrian Jew. If he is Syrian Jew, then in Daniel chapter 11, we can see his role prior to becoming the official Antichrist that's making a covenant and causing abominations to grow within the temple. When we go to Daniel chapter 11, verse 21, we can see that this is no doubt the Antichrist. He's doing the covenant, and then he's going to bring the abomination of desolation eventually. The Bible...
Shawnee, they are. I get on this Catholic site and troll them, and they are really rabid. I can easily see how the Inquisition started, and I let them know that. They didn't like it, but they are really vicious.
Says in Daniel 11:21, and in his estate,
they're probably the most vicious people I debate online.
The Antichrist shall stand up a vile person to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flatteries, and with the arms of a flood shall they be overflown from before him, and shall be broken. Yea, also the prince of the covenant, and after the league made with him, he shall work deceitfully, for he shall come up and become strong with a small people. He shall enter peaceably, even upon the fattest places of the province, and he shall do that which his fathers have not done. Nor his fathers' fathers, he shall scatter among them the prey and spoil and riches. Notice right here that the Antichrist, he will have a rich economic supply and system. He will make covenants, peace treaties, where he can take advantage of the riches of the rest of the other countries. Now, that's what the other national representatives are accusing Trump, is that he's going to take advantage of the world's riches and supplies. Like I told you before, Trump, his mentality is that he's concerned about his own country. Nothing wrong with that. His mentality is a business mentality. He's trying to make money for his country, save the economics. Nothing wrong with that. But as we've demonstrated throughout history, it doesn't matter what these humanitarian rich people do if they're looking after the best intention of their country. Best intentions can have consequences. I mean, there were endless movies about that, of people having the good intention of benefiting society. Scientists have always done that, but then look what their technological device is bringing, right? Dire consequences in the future. And that's what's going to happen if the Lord Jesus Christ doesn't come sooner, but we know that it's inevitably going to turn out that way. In Daniel chapter 11 and verse 21, we'll notice right here that if this is the Antichrist, the vile person, you see that? The vile person. If that is the case, then notice it says, and in his estate. Do you see that? And in his estate shall stand up a vile person. You'll notice right here that the Antichrist is taking over somebody's estate, somebody's position. So in other words, there is an estate. You could play with words. It could probably have dual or multiple interpretations behind it. You could probably think of it as an economic point of view, or you can think of it as a person's position or office, right? So this Antichrist has to take over some rich guy, some powerful person in office. Well, who is this person? He's the guy who's enforcing basically tariffs or taxes, or just increasing the wealth supply for his own power, for his own government, or for his own country. Look at verse 20, verse 20. Then shall stand up in his estate a what? Raiser of taxes in the glory of the kingdom. So think about the glory of America, right? The glory of America. But within few days he shall be destroyed, neither in anger nor in battle. Now, I know that Trump's goal is to cut taxes, but notice that this is for his own country, right? His own kingdom. It's for us. But the other countries, they're going to have to follow what he wants, his policies. Otherwise, he's going to raise the money, right? He's going to do the tariffs and all that kind of stuff. Now, verse 20, we know that traditionally the interpretation The historical interpretation is Caesar Augustus during the timeline of Christ. However, as we know, eschatology, Bible believers can see historical that can jump to futurist. And a huge reason behind that is because the Jews, they rejected their Messiah. They could have had the tribulation, they could have had the Antichrist, all that set up. Why? Because in his estate, that Roman Caesar Augustus who raised the taxes, the Antichrist could have immediately taken over. It could have been Nero for all we know. And we know that Nero, he's a great typology of the Antichrist. Dr. Uckman mentioned that in his Bible study charts and outlines. He put Nero's ID as 111, 111. And then we know Hitler was 555, his ID card. And then the official Antichrist will be 666. If we continue on Daniel chapter 11, like I told you, we can see a relationship with Syrians and Jews at verse 37. What is also interesting about some sources, they claim about the Mahdi, for some of you who don't
Diane, reading your link, that's wow.
know about the Mahdi is supposed to be
Why is it always pastors doing this sort of stuff?
an Islamic messianic figure. And the Muslims are waiting for this messianic figure in the last days. Some Muslim scholars, what they're going to do is that they claim that the Syrian civil war, see that conflict with Israel and Syria, some of them have interpreted that as a sign of his imminent arrival. If you study some of the sources, now a few of them claim this, which is very interesting, is that the Mahdi and probably Jesus himself as well, they're going to have some kind of collaboration, and then they're going to have a meeting somewhere in Syria, or they are related to the Syrians. It's really strange stuff. Some of them have interpreted the Syrian conflict with the imminent arrival, the imminent return of their messianic figure. Really, really strange stuff. It's also interesting, they say that once the Mahdi and Jesus, so both of them together, there will be Jesus and the Mahdi, they're going to conquer the world, and then they're going to establish a caliphate, according to some Muslim teachings. Now, remember, they have different factions and divisions in Islam. Now, some of them will claim that once this caliphate is set up by Jesus and the Mahdi himself, you know how long the Mahdi can last in his rule? They say that he could probably last about 7 years. He's going to die after 7 to 13 years, somewhere in between there. Really, really strange stuff and interesting things from the devil's system. The devil, he always give a partial truth, right? That's always been his goal from the Garden of Eden, is to...
Diane, remember the days when I used to go 4 or 5 hours straight? I can't find the content to do that now. I battle to find 2 hours worth of decent content. It's changed so much in the last 3 or 4 years.
Give a partial truth, not the whole truth. You'll notice from this drawing how I told you before, Babylon is the Vatican. It is not America. That's where a lot of people get doctrinal errors from. Babylon is the Vatican. But why does America share so many similarities with Babylon? The easy answer is because the Vatican's influence on America, it never left. Like I told you, Vatican has an obelisk, America has an obelisk. There's so many Catholic powers in the Vatican as well as in the White House. The building structures are, for some weird reason, pretty similar, right? Why is it shaped that way? Rectangle and a dome on top, you know? They always do stuff like that. Well, why is it that the CIA is patterned after the Jesuits? And even some of the CIA leaders and directors, they said that they respected their principles from the Jesuits. A lot of similarities is because America is taking stuff from the Babylon spirit, from the Vatican. That's the reason why they're closely intertwined. But also the reason why, like I told you before, is because the main body of the Antichrist is America. That's the main country. However, the woman will ride that beast. The Antichrist will still be connected to the Roman Catholic Church. And the great example of that is today what we're seeing with an American Pope, Pope Leo. Why did the Vatican choose an American Pope? In my opinion,
Diane, remember in the last days there'll be wars over water? That sounds like what's happening, isn't it?
because they want to go by the flow of the times. And actually some news sources will even mention that. Depending on how the times go, whoever is holding the powerful chess pieces, the Vatican will make sure to elect officials who have influence on those powerful leaders. That's the reason why they're doing that. And then we see some examples from these articles, what they will say about Pope Leo and Trump from PBS News. This is not good. I hope it's not repeating the same thing. If it is, I can't show the sources. Let's do that, huh? People want to see the source, I know that. Brother, this line has been broken maybe. Hold on. Oh, thank God. Nope, it's not broken. It's going to come out. There we go. So this is from PBS News. Pope Leo and Trump, notice, are the most powerful Americans, but lead in different roles and realms. Now you notice how these two are meeting. A lot of people have wondered, how does America and the Vatican, how can they share a common bond or connection to the Antichrist? Already today, we can see that possibility. You just need a little bit more of a push, you know, become even more so of a reality. Here's the news from NPR News, and they even admitted that the Vatican's goal, or they'll at least admit that the Vatican follows the flow of those in power. And in this case today, America. They are trying to go by the flow of America and then see how much of an influence they can still reach. Title of the article is Pope Leo XIV may help Vatican explore the great uncertainty that is Trump's America. So remember, that's the world now. That's the time we're living in, is Trump's America. So the Pope has to work with that. How are you going to do that? Obviously, vote in an American Pope, then you have more of a chance. It says right here, and can they read this part here? On Truth Social, the president called Leo's election a great honor for our country. But there are obvious signs Trump and the new Pope, who is in his first statement urged peace and unity, are immediately at odds. Notice right here what they're trying to point out is, in spite of the differences or the tensions, the Pope and the Vatican, they're still trying to build a connection, right? They're still trying to build a connection. Here's another one where one person gave an interesting statement. Though the election of a U.S. Pope seemed impossible to close.
That screen's very bright. I can't help that, guys, because how do you say it? He looks okay, but the glare, I can't stop.
Most watchers of the church. How about that, right? Impossible. Last year, we would have never have thought of that. People would criticize Dr. Ruckman. No, there's no way that the main body of the Antichrist, which is a leopard, is America, and somehow you tie it to the Vatican. Gene, Kim, you're crazy for tying the Antichrist to Syrian, Jew, Catholic Church, America. Make up your mind. Well, the simple answer is this. The Antichrist's job is to meet every major power. Find a common bond with every major power. Otherwise, how is he going to control the world? You have to think about that. In America, anything's impossible because it's diversity. Diversity of religions, ethnicities, powers, offices. It's an integrated system. America is a perfect opportunity for that. And we see this case with Pope Leo, obviously. The Trump effect on America and the international global order. This one world, new world order system. You need someone in the Vatican to follow along with that. Fagioli said, it is one of the things that made the impossible possible. What did that mean? It's that Trump effect on America, which made it possible for the Pope to become, for that American to become the Pope. Why? The woman rides the beast. That's her job. The United States is a great uncertainty.
So the United States is the woman they're saying. That makes sense.
For the Vatican as well, Fagioli said. And electing a Pope from the United States is one way for the Vatican to explore what this new America means for the world and for the church.
Diane, I went to the doctors this morning and what was that? Yeah, I went to the doctors this morning and he had all A&I up on his computer now. So he's using AI already, my local doctor, which surprised me.
They admit that the Vatican's job is to go by the flow of the one in power. In this case, it's Trump and America. Now, why is that? What's going on? I think it could be this case, UFO. They're preparing for the coming of the Antichrist. This is from News Nation. The title of their article is Pope Leo could be key to UFO disclosure, ex-Vatican advisor says. So I'm not pulling up this source because News Nation is reliable, although to conservatives it is to them, but it's because they're the ones that mentioned about this ex-Vatican advisor. A lot of people don't mention about that. What's going on here? Maybe if my theory is correct, what the bridging of America and the Antichrist is doing is because they're preparing for the coming of the official Antichrist to come down. So they have to merge together. That way, within this merging of Babylon, the Roman Catholic Church and America in it, the Antichrist says, that's fertile ground for me. That's the ground that I'm waiting for. And then he can come down. Now, when he comes down, I mentioned to you my theory, and from other Bible-believing preachers, I indicated that he'll be coming out of a UFO. And in Revelation chapter 6, it seems to be the case. Some unidentified flying object, he pops out of nowhere and comes down on the earth. The Antichrist, if he's going to come out a UFO, and the government and the Vatican, they're preparing that and they've held those secrets for a long time, then let's rewind to the past. Some of these things that people have forgotten. Has the Vatican and the American government been doing that for years? Like I told you before, they have to condition the people where people won't be shocked that out of this UFO comes this being, this Antichrist. The first sign will be suspicion and alarm. They will not trust, but because we're so used to believing, first thing, what our government says. I mean, think about COVID. What's the first thing everybody was looking at, including news media? What our government will say. What our government will say.
No,
so it shows how much dependency and comfort we have upon our government, upon the one who's speaking. I mean, just some guy who claims he's got the credentials and speaks from a platform that the whole world's looking at, they listen. They obey. They don't critique. We've seen that the past couple of years. So if the government keeps conditioning the people to get used to that, then obviously when this UFO comes down, suddenly people are alarmed. The government can assure the people, hey, this is a project we've been doing for years. And we've even told you this in congressional hearings. This was brought up, but we didn't want to alarm the people, so we kept it confidential as much as possible. But now you guys are ready. Now the public is aware and ready for this. So here are the precautionary measures that we should proceed. We've done this before with the first wave. So it's nothing new. It's the same protocols and procedures, a lot of similarities. Let's do this. So let's look at the past that people have forgotten or didn't know about. Another article from News Nation. They actually are the ones who did the interview with this guy. We are not alone. The UFO whistleblower speaks. Who is News Nation talking about? They're talking about this one guy whose name, let's see right here, Grusch. David Grusch. I don't know if you all remember that. Do you all remember David Grusch? Or maybe you forgot about that. David Grusch was real big. He's the guy who had access to higher ups, big confidential stuff. I'm trying to find his credentials here from Grusch. We'll have to go back to News Nation. But David Grusch was a former intelligence officer. You'll notice that. He makes claim of potential extraterrestrial life. He claims that the U.S. has quite a number of non-human vehicles, whatever that is. If UAP, that's unidentified aerial phenomenon, what we call UFO, do indeed represent a potential threat to our security, then the capabilities, systems, processes, and sources we use to observe and study or analyze these phenomena need to be classified at appropriate levels, said Scott Bray, Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence. This is...
I was never here. Did you see that weird fog that descended on some of your cities? The pets were dying after a couple of hours in it. And no one's really paying much attention to that. And when it first happened, I knew there was something fishy about the fog.
It's what he says. He received an Air Force scholarship in physics. Okay, so we know he's not a dumb guy, right? So he definitely has the credentials. He was originally commissioned on active duty and served 14 years in the Air Force. He mentions right here, he became a career intelligence officer. Grusch spent time on the ground in Afghanistan and other places he can't mention before rotating back to Washington, D.C. And my last position, which I left in April 2023, I co-lead the UAP portfolio for the...
No, I was never here. No, it wasn't chemtrails. It was a huge helicopter, and there'd be like, it'd drop whatever the fog was, and the fog come straight out of the helicopter and went into the cities. It wasn't chemtrails.
National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, and some of the highest officials within the Department of Defense and intelligence community used to call on me to advise them on some of the hardest target sets.
I'll see if I can find something.
He told News Nation he was entrusted with some of the country's most intimate secrets. Here's the most earth-shattering of those secrets, he claimed, were revealed after 2019 when he was invited to join the UAP task force. He claims these are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed. He claims that he was skeptical at first. I thought it was totally nuts, and I thought at first I was being deceived.
I saw that,
Johnny. As somebody who has studied physics, where you know maybe they're coming from a different physical dimension, as described in quantum mechanics. Remember, I kept going to quantum theory, quantum mechanics, concerning about extra life out there. There's a reason I'm doing that. We know that there are extra dimensions due to high energy particle collisions, etc. And there's a theoretical framework to explain that. So he believes this is scientifically possible.
I was never here. They've been experimenting on the black people for years.
Started out as a non-believer. I came to the problem as a hardcore physics guy, intel officer. He says, I was very methodical, interviewing people who didn't know each other and making sure this wasn't some kind of cover-up of some other program, because he's talking about those witnesses of the extraterrestrial life. What did he say? He claimed they shut the door in my face. They denied me access to these programs. There's some other interesting stuff he pointed out. He says, we're definitely not alone. The data points quite empirically that we're not alone. He says the United States has intact spacecraft in its possession and possibly bodies. Well, naturally, when you recover something that's either landed or crashed, sometimes you encounter dead pilots, and believe it or not, as fantastical as that sounds, it's true. Whoever those dead pilots are, right? So when asked about his credibility and why his claims should be taken seriously, Grush pointed to his credentials. Well, we provided the proof internally to the Inspector General and went into all the details, he said. I mean, I have the credentials. I was an intelligence officer on the UAP task force. Allegations of aliens and their spacecraft are hard to accept, even coming from a respected insider. The notion comes with obvious questions. Grush says the craft may not be traveling through space as we understand it. Now, this is the most interesting part to me, because I'm a geek into this stuff, sorry. It is a well-established fact, at least mathematically and based on empirical observation and analysis, that there most likely are physical additional spatial dimensions. As you can imagine, 4- and 5-dimensional space, where what we experience is linear time, ends up being a physical dimension in higher dimensional space where you are living there. You could translate across what we perceive as a linear flow. So there is a possibility that this is a theory here. I'm not saying this is 100% the case, but it could be that this is not necessarily extraterrestrial, and it's actually coming from a higher dimensional physical space that might be collated right there. Because he's trying to be more scientific. Because he doesn't believe in these aliens things too, actually. But he can't deny what he actually studied and saw. So he's trying to give you scientific jargons for this one. Lots of interesting stuff. He says, based on the very specific properties I was briefed on, isotopic ratios that have to be engineered for it to be at those levels. But also just extremely strange, heavy atomic metal high up in the periodic table, arrangements that we don't understand. You know what the emergent properties are, but there's just a very strange mix of elements. He also says that concerning the Roswell incident, the famous Roswell incident about seeing the aircraft, he says this, you might want to trust some of these witnesses, Grush said.
I seen the CIA, they done an experiment on an Italian city, and they put LSD in all the bread loaves and done the reconnaissance. I can't say it, but they checked them out and seen how they responded. But the whole town was under acid attack for about a week, and the CIA were behind that. I still remember that.
This is the most interesting one. He claims this, Grush. It's long been known that the regime of Italian dictator Benito Mussolini, where the Vatican's located, documented numerous UAP. An internal memo from the Italian Secret Services include crude drawings of the UAPs. In 1933 was the first recovery in Europe, and in...
Who knows, Diane, maybe Canada will become that. I highly doubt it, but there you go.
Magenta, Italy, said Grush. They recovered a partially intact vehicle. How about that? Well, the Roswell incident was debunked, right? But he says that analysis they did was a total hack job. I mean, even anybody with analytical skills, if you read it, you can deduce that they're completing multiple situations, crash test dummies, and movable dunes. The Air Force, is just saying that the townsfolk who personally witnessed it were totally imagining things. They concocted that whole report just to disinform. How about that? Yeah, the whole town, right? Just like what? Eyewitnesses of the resurrection of Jesus? All 500? They're just crazy? I mean, if atheists have always done that before, that story will work. Now, if you watch my other video, I showed you how that resurrection of Jesus Christ may be more interrelated with alien sightings more than you think. It goes like dimension of the third kind, then it goes to fourth, fifth, and really weird signs and symptoms after that. Actually, some of that is so akin and close to the 500 eyewitnesses of the resurrection of Jesus that they're willing to die for him. So do these people who claim to have witnessed this alien savior. It's really, really big, actually. So Satan, he's using this as a huge deception. There's a reason why the Bible called it strong delusion. Strong delusion. 2 Thessalonians 2. Just as much of a persuasive experience as witnessing the resurrection of Christ. That's really big. But anyway, that can go on and on and on. Now, I could spend all day reading this, but I'll never get to the end of this teaching again. So, but I would encourage you to read this article. He gives a lot of interesting stuff right here from this article. And the Catholic Church actually admits it. This is from the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. A group of scientists and researchers are seeking access to the Vatican Apostolic Archives to uncover information about UFOs and the paranormal, believing there may be traces amid the 50 miles of shelves holding everything from handwritten papal notes.
I wonder if the Vatican's got anything on Antarctica. It'd have to, wouldn't it?
To presidential missives. Why? David Grush, congressional testimony. He claims the Vatican's involvement into an international cover-up of alien secrets, not just America. See, they're more closely intertwined than you think. He says this, interestingly, Grush claimed Pope Pius XII back-channeled information to the United States about a crashed UFO recovered by fascist dictator Benito Mussolini. All right, and obviously they're all in denial, so they want to deny that.
Hey, Diane, I forgot to tell you, Sydney had a 3.4 earthquake the day before yesterday or last night. But I'm not sure when, but Sydney rarely gets earthquakes.
Grilly said the archive had received emails inquiring about the veracity of Grush's claim, but likened them to requests to read the personal letters of Pontius Pilate or the Virgin Mary. One can laugh at it, he said. So obviously they're trying to dismiss it. But like Grush said, his credibility on this is that then why would they bring it up to the hearing? They must have taken him seriously, that means, that much. Here's some other cases, which is interesting, from other authoritative sources. However, findings like those reported in Diana Walsh-Asuka's 2019 book, American Cosmic, suggest to UFO believers that the archives hold more than meets the eye. Asuka, a religious studies professor at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, said the archives are full of reports about paranormal events, such as nuns witnessing orbs entering their cells, flying houses, and other aerial phenomena. She argues that these events might be better understood as UFO-type occurrences rather than miracles as Catholics traditionally understand them. The historical record is filled with these kind of events, she told CNS May 30th. The people at the Vatican, they don't even know where to look. It's in their basements. Here's from scientists like Gary Nolan, a professor of medicine at Stanford University. View the Vatican archives as a potential treasure trove for understanding UFOs. The Vatican is probably the oldest library system of paranormal or supernatural knowledge still extant. The archive has an aura of both mysticism and a feeling of deep truth that if you just know how to read it, you can pull that information out. Nolan believes that if an advanced species is showing up on Earth, it means it might be possible for humans to survive threats like climate change, the energy crisis, and war. See, you need that man of sin to come down out of his UFO to bring peace on the earth. He also says the very fact that we think we see something to me is hope. That's their blessed hope. Our blessed hope is getting out of there. Their blessed hope is that he comes down. And that's the Antichrist. And it says something has made it past the cliff. past the decision point that we feel we are on the edge of right now. He's co-founded the Soul Foundation 2023 to spearhead scientific research into UFOs, but they want to be scientifically accurate, so they call it UAP. Let's see. This is what Peter Scoffish says, the foundation's director. He says, because the Vatican facilitates interfaith dialogue and engages religious pluralism, one world religion, it's always been in our mind that it's an entity we want to engage. They're ready for this. They're preparing for this. Where? In good old Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley, man. We always raise hell on earth, this place. If some of you want to go, all right, and do interfaith dialogue discussions, cultural multiplicity, monstrous discussions on what a man and a woman is, whatever. Esalen is a retreat center in California known for its progressive and countercultural influence. That might be a nice vacation spot for some of you. So just go over there and then take a look, okay? He says right here, told him that someone should go to the Vatican archives, do research, examine the documentation, and try to classify it in ways that would be accessible to the scientific communities. He says right here, studying miracles attributed to the intercession of saints as possible paranormal activity, Father Tiso said, could help build another bridge in the direction of paranormal phenomena connected with the idea of the UFO narrative that somehow we human beings are in some way in contact with other civilizations, other conscious beings in the universe. He says right here, the whole gamut of religious phenomena appears, look at this, in the abduction or encounter experience. What do we know about the pre-tribulation rapture? It is going to be an abduction that the government or the Vatican can use, and then also an encounter experience. Like I told you, my theory might have more legitimacy than you think. I mean, this is a good cover-up story because the Vatican and the government have been doing this for years. By the way, some of you may not know this. There is a program that they're working on, and this seems like a government source. I mean, Congress.gov probably.
I was never here. I think they've got, it's not all ice in Antarctica. Like under the ice, that Byrd, Admiral Byrd, he talked about seeing mammoths and things like that down in Antarctica.
So this document, very interestingly, you know what they call this document? They call it, this document is a result of a multi-year internal investigation into the subjects of unidentified anomalous phenomena. Remember, that's UAP. Technologies of unknown origin and non-human intelligence. It's an unacknowledged special access program. And they were discussing about this. Primary mission to collect imagery intelligence on unidentified aerial phenomena, utilizing tasked and untasked U.S. military intelligence resources. As a part of the network of SAPs linked to non-human intelligence and UAP technologies, what is the name of this program? Let me show it to you. You're like, Pastor, show it, stop reading it. I'll ruin the surprise. You know what it's called? The government calls it? They call it the, let's see right here, the Immaculate Constellation. Weird, huh? Sounds pretty Catholic, don't you think so? Like Immaculate Conception, etc. Why do they have to always connect it to the whore of Revelation chapter 17? The Roman Catholic Church. Weird stuff, but that's a real thing that they were discussing. Okay, let's look at Revelation chapter 3. Revelation chapter 3. Let me give you a few interesting notes here. Two notes that I want to conclude about things that we will see. So I've spent a lengthy amount of time discussing about the America's relationship with the Pope. But then what is this other stuff that we see here? We go backwards here. So we can see we were spending a lengthy amount of discussion on this, but what's prior? we see prior to here, notice Laodicea. Laodicea, the church, is going to be tied to an economic richness. Remember, we're living in that time now. Perhaps it could be a golden age. It might even reach that far. Americans might be happy, and churches and Christians might be happy, but that's the deception. The Bible shows that the last church of the 7 churches in Revelation, the last period of the church age, is a time of wealth and prosperity. Laodicea. When we look at Revelation chapter 3 and verse 14. And unto the angel of the church of the Laodiceans write, these things saith the Amen, the faithful and true witness, the beginning of the creation of God. He tells them, verse 17, because thou sayest, I am rich and increased with goods, and have need of nothing, and knowest not that thou art wretched and miserable, and poor and blind and naked, spiritually. In this economic prosperity, it is very possible we might see this. Yet in verse 20, I want to give you something hopeful, something inspiring. Verse 20, behold, I stand at the door and knock. So Jesus is knocking on the door. Mark these words down. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him and he with me. Now, we know that this is referring to our relationship with Jesus Christ. But I wonder if this could be in reference to the rapture as well. In other words, if mankind, it says if any man. So that means any man out there. So God's going to reach every single man out there. He's looking for any man out there. When he reaches, in other words, probably the last man, any man who would be willing to hear his voice, Jesus Christ might open that door. And then
I wonder who's going to be the very last man to be saved. That's an interesting point. The very last man.
They can feast with him at the marriage supper of the Lamb. And that door he opens is actually the rapture, which is immediately mentioned at chapter 4, verse 1.
See, this is why I don't play him so much. He's an early rapture dude. He's running out of time.
After this I looked, and behold, a door was opened in heaven. And the first voice, if any man hear my voice, which I heard was as it were a trumpet talking with me, which said, come up hither. That's our rapture. We get called up hither. Now go to John chapter 10 and 2 Peter 3. John chapter 10 and the 2 Peter chapter 3. And then we'll close it here. John chapter 10 and 2 Peter chapter 3. Don't miss next Sunday. It's actually going to be more doctrinally heavy. It'll relate more to hermeneutics, which is my favorite. I'll give some end time stuff, which will be interesting. So it'll be a continuation, but it'll be more hermeneutical. It's going to be relating to the dual application, which is what I've always been fascinated in, spiritual dispensationalism. So I will show that. That has to do with the transition of the church to tribulation in its writings. So I'll show you some very interesting stuff. You don't want to miss that out. But go to John chapter 10. We'll cover that next Sunday.
Okay, he's done.
But first of all, we're not in the red yet, but we are very close. So if God is blessing you, can help. Now would be a very good time. Also, Genesis Gold has called. Yes, yes, yes. We do want to be a supporter. We do want to help Prophecy Club. So if you do have an IRA, 401k, or needing of gold and silver or precious metal, then call 800-200-GOLD. If you want to get one of the prepper bars, 844-741-1776. Also, if you have an IRA, or excuse me, if you have crypto and you want to put it in an IRA, 401k, blocktrustira.com. Okay, so you've heard it. I've heard it all of our life. United we stand, divided we fall, and we're going to be talking about that sometime today. First of all, you recall also Then Coverstone had an angel come to him, and the angel said, a house divided against itself shall not stand. So,
Shawnee, I love the language it uses. Come up hither. Come up hither. That sounds like it's from the 1700s.
the internal revolution is basically the final straw. And I think that the internal revolution is going to be the evil ones in our nation rising up to overthrow the Trump administration. I do not have a thus saith the Lord on that. That's my personal opinion, but I'll bet you it's right. Now, with that in mind, let me show you some things. This is as of May 27th. California, under the leadership of radical left Democrat Gavin Newsom, continues to illegally allow men to play in women's sports. This week, a transition male athlete at a major event won everything and is now qualified to compete in the state finals next weekend. As a male, he was a less than average competitor, but as a female, this transition person is practically unbeatable. This is not fair and totally demeaning to women and girls. Please be hereby advised that large-scale federal funding will be held back from the state of California, maybe permanently, if the executive order on this subject matter is not adhered to. The governor himself said it is unfair. I will speak to him today to find out which way he wants to go. In the meantime, I'm ordering local authorities, if necessary, to not allow the transition person to compete in state finals. This is a totally ridiculous situation. Now, I point to the fact that it's another one of many things going on in our nation that says we are a nation divided. United we stand, divided we fall. If we were still a Christian nation,
I'd very much agree with that. United States is divided at the moment. I very much agree.
Would not be happening. So it's another one of the things that says, yeah, America is divided. America is in the process of falling. I do believe that God sent Trump here to give us a little bit of a chance to do a 2 Chronicles 7:14, my people called by my name will humble themselves and seek my face and turn from wicked ways. Then I'll hear from heaven, forgive their sins and heal their land. I think that's God is going to say, I sent Trump. I gave you the opportunity to repent, but of course, as I don't have to tell you, it's not happening. Now, a couple more things, then we'll get on to the main topic. Sheriff Scott Jenkins, his wife Patricia, and their family have been dragged through hell by corrupt, weaponized Biden DOJ. Okay, there should not be Biden DOJ. There should be just DOJ. There should not be questions when a sheriff is being arrested and being put in jail simply because the left doesn't like it. He goes on to say, radical left or liberal judges allow the evidence what they feel like, not what is mandated under the Constitution and rules of evidence. This sheriff is a victim of an overzealous Biden Department of Justice and doesn't deserve to spend a single day in jail. He's a wonderful person who is persecuted by the radical left monsters and left for dead. This is why I, as president, have granted Sheriff Jenkins a full and unconditional pardon. He's not going to be going to jail tomorrow. So here we have California is fighting against the President of the United States. Here we have judges fighting against sheriffs. Okay, so this is not a small thing. This is a big thing. On to the next one. We're still waiting for the foreign student list from Harvard so that we can determine, after a ridiculous expenditure of billions of dollars, how many radicalized lunatics, troublemakers all, should not be left back in our country. Harvard is very slow in the presentation of these documents, and probably for good reason. The best thing Harvard has going for it is that they have shopped around and found the absolute best judge for them, but have no fear, the government will, in the end, win. So here we have Harvard that was started to teach pastors how to preach the gospel and is now totally turned the other way. A couple more, then I'll show you some. I'm considering taking $3 billion grant money away from the very anti-Semitic. I know what's anti-Semitic. In other words, Harvard is against Jews. Remember Genesis 12:3, I will bless them that bless you and curse them that curse you. So when a nation turns against the Jews, they don't last long. That's why the devil is getting these people to turn against Jews. It's all part of the plan to bring the last Christian nation down to its knees to cause Babylon to fall. And that's sad to say, it's working. Now, here's what I want to point here. Look at number 6. Chaos reigns as Americans protest help to Israel. If you look at this, first thing is the Palestinian state is formed, so we go against Israel. That's one. As a result, God sends an earthquake. That's catastrophe. America cries out for help. Number 3. Israel refuses to help. Why? Because we just split Israel. Then Israel is attacked. America sends troops, which is the right thing. But number 6, then you see protest. Now, I remember when she first got this in 2006, I thought, man, America, we love the Jews. We're a big supporter of Israel. That, I don't see how that'll happen. But today, not only do we see how it'll happen, it is happening. So our nation is walking down a one-way path heading to destruction. And we can't seem to see it. And I look at people, by the way, thank you for your emails. I cannot tell you how many times you make the program by sending me your emails. Now, I get emails and it sends me over to these places and I see so many things going wrong with our nation. I can't even cover it all. I see the fall of America as very close. And I'm about to show you some other things that prove it. Last thing, what Vladimir Putin doesn't realize is that if it weren't for me, this is Trump talking, lots of really bad things would have already happened to Russia. And I mean really bad. He's playing with fire. What's wrong with that? Well, you recall I read Michael Snyder's dream where he said, I was shaken of the dream. It took a long time before I could get back to bed again. What was going on? He says it was a dream about Donald Trump in the United States and Russia. Donald Trump is an old school businessman from New York City, and he has a very unique negotiating style. In other words, basically twisting arms. He uses a lot of carrot and sticks. The carrot is, if you do what he wants, you make a lot of money. If you don't do what he wants, he hits you with a stick. And what he's saying is we better be praying that Trump does not be hitting Putin or Russia with a stick. He needs to reach out and become friends. Matter of fact, I pray almost every night, I think it's every night, Lord, help that Trump and the American negotiators see things from the Russians' point of view and to operate from that point of view. Help Trump and his negotiators to see that the real problem, the real evil here is Ukraine. And in my opinion, if Trump would just call me, I would tell him what you need to do is stop all support, military, money, people, boots on the ground, everything.
Stan, tell Trump where the oil is in Israel, then we can get that thing happening you keep talking about.
Everything. Stop all support of Ukraine and reach your hand out to Russia and become friends with Russia. Start doing some business transactions with Russia and try to see things from Russians' point of view here. Okay, so I know that all of the news says Russia's just this bad. Okay, well, they're bad, but guess what? So's America and some things. But when you've got so many prophecies saying the Russians one day will defeat us in 1 hour, like the old saying says, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. What Trump does need to be doing, my opinion, he needs to be keeping the Russians very close. Don't speak against the Russians. Instead, reach your hand of friendship out and try to become friends with them. Now, let me finish reading what he was told in the dream. When Trump is trying to get something accomplished and there's resistance, sometimes he will say, I'm going to say, do crazy things or make some very serious threats in order to put the other side off balance. In other words, we need to pray that Trump, the American negotiators, are friends with the Russians. Now, let me get on over to what I wanted to cover today. Some more Dmitry Duduman information. Okay, now let's go to what Dmitry Duduman was told. And let me briefly refresh your memory who he is. Okay, so I met Dmitry Duduman in 1987, had him in my home on 2 different occasions. I spent probably 2 weeks in our home total. And I went to his home.
Come on.
And this was the guy that
Come on,
smuggled
move.
Bibles
Jump
into
up.
Romania
Come
and
on.
Russia for 30 years.
Jump.
They arrested
Oh,
him,
come on, jump a
put him
little
through 5
bit.
months of torture, put him on the electric chair twice. As he was on the electric chair, the whole room lit up with white light. And the angel Gabriel showed up in the room and said, "You're not going to die. You're going to America to give them warning from God. Plead the blood of Jesus." So he started saying, "Sinjalulusus, which is Romanian for the blood of Jesus." He woke up on the ground. They're throwing water on him, slapping him around. Next day, put him back on the electric chair twice, could not kill him. Long story short, 3 months later, the angel came to him again, healed him up, said, "Okay, now get busy. You have 4 more years to carry Bibles. They will follow you step by step. But when they see they can't catch you, they're going to kick you out of your country. You're going to America to give them a warning from God." Now, he told him the year, month, day, and hour. He said, "So that you know that I'm truly the angel of God." It all came to pass. July 22nd, 1984, 10 o'clock in the morning. He was exiled, taken to the airport. He arrived in America August 3rd, 1984. That night, the angel Gabriel came to him again, said, "Get beside me." He took and showed him California, Las Vegas, New York, and Florida. He said, "You see what I've shown you? In one day, this will burn." "How will it burn? America is so powerful." He said, "The fall of America will start with an internal revolution in America, started by the communists. Some of the people will start fighting against the government. The government would be busy with internal problems. Then from the
Now, I must admit, 6 months ago, you'd think this is absurd. But where we are now, that's completely happening.
Russia, Cuba, Nicaragua, Central America, Mexico, and 2 other countries will attack and defeat America in 1 hour. So great riches will come.
Now, I was talking about the protests and all that, not the international countries.
After that, from time to time, the angel with various angels would come to him and give him messages. We're going to read some of these messages, and you can get all of these messages in this book. It's called God's Warnings to America. It comes in a shrink wrap set of 5. One is $20. Don't do that. Get a shrink wrap set of 5 of them for $35 at prophecyclub.com. And while you're there, the best deal is, like is behind me here, get 40 books for a gift of $100. We shrink wrap them so that you have extra copies to give away, because it's not just about selling books. It's about getting a message out to as many people as possible. Okay, let's start. December 5th, 1989. Dmitry says, "I just returned home from Wisconsin, and every night I prayed, a very big star would appear in front of me. This happened about 16 times in the period of a few days. Every time the star would appear, it would make a great noise, and I was always tremble. For a few seconds, it would just stand up high, then at great speed, it would fall to the ground. I prayed together with my family for an answer. After the 16th time, 16 times, okay, the answer came. I heard a voice say, 'Do you see the star? It represents America. This is how fast the fall of America will be, as fast as that star fell.' Then the voice said, 'I love the Christians in this country because of all the good deeds they have done, and for the help they have given those in need. I bless this country so other people would be fed from it.' The voice also said, 'There will be a time of preparation for the people. The ones who need to repent should do it now before it's too late. The time of trouble will last until the total number of the chosen is fulfilled.'" Now, let me explain. I believe that the Bible teaches that there is a great revival. Remember, I told you August the 8th, 2015, Saturday night, I said, "Lord, what do you want to say for the sermon tomorrow morning?" And I heard words. And it says, "As the judgment hits, so will my miracles." Miracles like no one has seen, going all the way back to Adam and Eve. You tell them, "I will never leave them nor forsake them. I will meet the devil inch for inch, step for step, pound for pound, everything he does, I'm going to meet him. Meaning, as the Antichrist, the false prophet are in the temple, the two witnesses are walking down the streets of Jerusalem. He's going to meet him at everything. Now, before the Antichrist is released, I believe is when we're about to see the greatest human revival in human history. The greatest miracles. No one has ever seen the kind of miracles. And I believe it'll start in America, but I don't think it'll stay in America. It's a global thing. Okay. That's what he's talking about here. And that's part of what he's talking about here today. In other words, when the Gentile book of life is filled, then he goes to the Jewish book of life. Remember, the Bible says that Jerusalem will be trodden down to the Gentiles till the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. The thing that fulfills that is when the Jewish book, or excuse me, the Gentile book is filled. Now let's go to the next one. A flicker of light, May 1991. In my dream, the sun and moon appeared in the heavens in a more powerful intensity than I'd ever seen before. Suddenly, two men, this will be the angels, two men came out of the light, one out of the sun, one out of the moon. The one of the sun began to speak. I am the Son of Righteousness. I will soon come to judge the world. Get up and work now while it is still day. For the night is soon coming when you can no longer be able to work. I want to strengthen you, for I still have work for you to do. Look to your left. I looked to my left. I saw a black cloud furiously approaching with lightning and thunder booming out of it. It covered the horizon and soon covered the sun and the moon. A heavy smell filled the place where I stood, making it very difficult to breathe. What can this horrible stench be? I asked. This is how nuclear fallout smells, he replied. Then suddenly the darkness of the cloud far away from where at which I stood, there was a flicker of light. The voice in the sun said, walk toward the light. As I began to follow this flicker of light, all of my family suddenly appeared with me. We kept walking on a very narrow path. In other words, broad is the way that leads to destruction. Need either be there, go there, and straight as the gate, narrow is the way that leads to eternal life. That's what he's talking about. We kept walking on a very narrow path. And after a long and exhausting trip, we arrived at the bank of a big body of water. Again, you must have. I became troubled because there was no way to get across. Then suddenly, like a ski lift appeared before us. And the voice again said, get on. Before we even had time to think we arrived on the other side of the body of water. Then the voice said to me, do not be quiet. Tell the people that time is very short and the trouble will come to the earth. I will still allow a time for the souls of those that want to save. In other words, big revival. Tell the people that I'm a jealous God and I want them all for me. Tell them to pray more and worship me with all of their hearts in holiness and cleanness. Now, January 23rd, 1992, America, the Falling Star. It was late, and after prayer, I went to sleep. After prayer, what? He had a prayer closet. He prayed every night, matter of fact, morning and night. Excuse me. In my dream, I heard a loud noise. I began to look around. When I looked up, I saw a big star in the sky, but its tips were bent. Suddenly, I heard the sound of hoofbeats. Now, I'll tell you what he's talking about. These are the nations that gather, agree, sign agreements to attack America. I began to hear a sound of hoofbeats, which were getting closer and closer. We should be hearing those beats now. I guess many are not. When I looked where the noise was coming from, I saw 4 horses pulling an old-fashioned chariot. In the chariot were 4 men, meaning it starts with 4 nations. They were armed in heavy artillery, and they began to shoot at the star. That would be America. The star began to burn. Then it fell from the sky. I woke up and told Mike the dream. He asked me what it meant, and I went and told him that I didn't know. He told me to pray. And if it was of God, he would let me dream it again. I prayed and again tried to fall asleep. As I was nodding off, when again I heard the noise of the star with its chariot, with its bent tips, again I heard the hoofbeats. But this time I looked up and there were 6 horses, 6 men were in the chariot. In other words, it starts with 4 nations, but more nations join in. Mm-hmm. Chariot, all of them had masks on and were armed. Again, they began to shoot at the star. The star
Hey,
began
Vars,
to
good to
once
see you,
again
bro.
and fell. Frightened, I woke up. Being troubled again, I prayed again and asked God for an explanation. I could not fall asleep for a few hours, but when I did, the same dream came again. This time, the noise was even greater.
Hey, Vars, check this out. I reckon Gary Wayne's been cloned. Wait till I show you this. There he is.
Look what water weight does to your body.
So I get
Number
ads. Good
one,
on you,
Stop
ads.
drinking too much water. People often drink far too much water, and they're full.
And I want to know, I
Look at
want to
that.
understand, and I want things understood.
That's Gary Wayne now. He's aged about 20 years in 6 months. Look at him. I'll take it back a little bit more.
What I try and do is just clarify things for people. So as a contrarian, I want to know, I want to understand, and I want things understood in context.
He looks like a clone,
So,
look.
I don't apologize for the Bible. I don't.
It looks like he's aged about 20 years. I reckon he's been cloned. Right, that's where we were.
Again, the star appeared with the same crooked tips. Again, I heard the horses. This time, though, there weren't 4 or 6 horses. There were 8 horses, meaning 8 nations. A total of 8 nations will be the ones that eventually attack America. There were 8 horses, 8 men in the chariot. Again, they fired upon the star and it fell. This time, when it hit the ground, it blew up. In the same place where the star used to be appeared a man dressed in white, angel. He said, the star represents America.
Gee, Vars, that's a good point. I saw a photo of me 2 years ago when I was going through my photos on the iPad, and I've aged heaps in the last 2 years. A lot. I've aged a lot in the last 2 years. And it's not like I've had super burdens to worry about.
The reason the tips are crooked is because America has to fall away from the truth and from the way of God. The 8 horses and the men in the chariot represent 8 kings that will rise up against America and will overcome her. The dream ended. That same morning during my prayer, I saw a red flag with light blue and
That Gary Wayne one, I'm going to play that tomorrow, Vars, and then Mike from around the world.
white in the left corner. It was bleeding. May God keep us awake and ready. I think God showed him the flag our nation has after we fall. Okay. A Peaceful Heart. July the 4th, 1991. On the morning of July the 4th, 1991, I was counseled by the Holy Spirit who told me this. What I ask of my people is to keep peace in their hearts. I do allow trials to come over them. This is to keep them humble. Do not wait, but try to get closer to God. For hard days are at hand when a powerful darkness will sit over this country. Now, is that just wickedness? I was about to say wickedness, but could also be the 3 days of darkness. Wickedness and sin have reached their end, and the Almighty, the Righteous One, will take revenge on the sin. Be holy and draw near to the Lord with your life and a clean heart, with fasting and praying. Do you fast? You know, if you're a part of the Fast Track or Fast Gap teams, we fast at least once a week. That's a very good idea. With fasting and praying. So I can spare.
There you go, Oz, over here, right up your alley.
Free in the days of trouble. The day of the Holy One's terrible wrath is getting close, and everyone receive their just reward. For God is a righteous judge. Do not be lazy, but come before me on your knees more often. Afterwards, the Spirit of God encouraged me, telling me to be strengthened because my fight.
That's like when I get too drunk and say something on the net, and in the morning I'm horrified on what I said, die. Same principle.
Will get harder still. But God will make me more than victorious over everything. Man Holding the Moon, June 3rd, 1992. I dreamed I was on the shore of a river. When I looked into the water, I saw it was very dirty. I wanted to catch fish. Now, what's he talking about? He's talking about I want to win souls. And the water being very dirty is representing the filth in the world that is blocking the message of the gospel getting out.
You guys are just talking about water, and look at this.
I saw it was very dirty, and I wanted to catch fish, but I couldn't because the waters were so muddy. I asked myself, well, how can I catch fish from this river? There's no clean water anywhere to clean up afterwards. When I looked further up the river, I saw a large patch of clean water coming. And what is that? I believe that's the time of the greatest human revival in human history arriving. In other words, there is a time when a great revival is going to arrive. When it came by me, I checked the clean water with my hand to see if it was cold. When I felt the water, a powerful ray came down surrounding me. In other words, great miracles. The light enabled me to see the fish. I was surprised to see how many fish there were. That's right, it's going to bring in millions, okay? When I looked up, I saw the light was coming from the moon. When I looked closer, I saw a man of the moon, and his face was so shiny I could not look long. I looked back into the water, and a voice told me, start fishing now, because the time is short. Soon there will be no more opportunity to fish. What does that mean? Because no man can buy or sell save he had the mark of the name of the beast or the number of his name. In other words, the Antichrist is going to take over. A voice sounded so close, it frightened me. The man looked so far away, but the voice was close, and I looked up and I heard the voice again. The man said, the ray of light that you see is my voice. Then he said, look how many fish there are before you. When I looked down, I saw more fish than ever. The man said, the second time, catch them now, fish while you can, for in a short time the fishing shall be over. When I looked back toward the moon, it had changed into a red arc, like a rainbow. The man was holding it in his hand by the corner. He said to me, see this moon? Soon its light will go out. And I asked, where am I? And I woke up. Okay, when's the moon go out? That would be in the fourth vial. The sun gets 7 times hotter. Fifth vial, see the darkness comes upon the world. And when Jesus returns, of course, the sun, moon, and stars are all dissolved like smoke, Isaiah 34. Now let's go to Revelation, November the 8th, 1992. Even some of my own people whom I have chosen have given into sinful things, believing that they are fighting only for themselves. This is why I, the Lord, have allowed and do allow the hardships. Do not be astonished by what you see, for the poverty and hunger will grow. The hardships will even be greater, but it will not be allowed for long, because the prayers of the hungry children have reached me. Everything is prepared for the killing, the battles, and the crimes. The plunders and troubles are close and shall come to pass in a short time. After all this, things will change in such a way you do not think possible. Those that are haughty, I, the Lord, will humble. You will receive the same cup that you give. If you are poor or if you are king, God is no respecter of persons. Tell my people to be prepared and be careful, says the Lord, for everything I've decided will happen. Do not say in your hearts that the Lord has said many things that have not happened. Yet because all these things are decided by me, and everything has its appointed time. Draw closer to the Lord your God and cease doing evil things, that I may give you the victory. I, the Lord, will work in ways that you cannot even imagine, but be holy. The sin of the great whore, America, has spread throughout the world. The stench of her sin has reached me, and I will not be long until I will raise the whole Arab world, the Russians and other countries against her, that they may destroy her. Well, I'm out of time, but if you can help us financially, we would appreciate it. When the suitcase nukes go off, if you want your car to start, if you want your computer,
Hey Aussies, that whole up. We've created the easiest way to see a doctor 24/7.
Cadbury Dairy Milk Minis. They'll be huge in your house.
The action begins in Revelation. The 3 worst judgments of the book of Revelation. Number 1, seals. The seven seals, Revelation 6 to 16, cover Satan on earth. The seven seals are part of God's final judgments. Revelation 6 verses 1 to 17 details the seals. The action begins in Revelation chapter 5 with the search for someone in heaven and on earth, someone worthy of breaking the seals and opening the scroll. The seven seals in heaven, according to John's vision, hold a scroll, and as each seal is broken, a new judgment is unleashed upon the world. John writes, I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a book written inside and on the back, sealed with seven seals. The scroll includes God's judgments. No one was judged worthy to break the seals and unlock the scroll, which saddened John. If the scroll could not be opened, evil would not be judged, and evil would continue to plague the earth. As John weeps over the unopened scroll and its seven intact seals, he receives excellent news. The Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has triumphed. He is able to open the scroll and its seven seals. This is a representation of Jesus Christ, the slain Lamb, who is also the Lion of judgment. As Jesus takes the scroll to open the seals and deliver judgment to the unbelieving world, the beings in heaven glorify him with a new song. Revelation 5 verse 9, and they sang a new song saying, You are worthy to take the book and to open its seals, for you were slain, and with your blood you purchased for God persons from every tribe, language, people, and nation. John 5 verse 22. Moreover, the Father judges no one, but has entrusted all judgment to the Son.
Wow.
The Lamb begins to open the seals amidst the worship due to him.
Diane, that's a ridiculous amount of money to spend on a wedding, isn't it? I think that's ridiculous. That's, what'd you say, 60,000, 50,000? That'd be about 75,000 Australian for a wedding.
Scroll can be unrolled a bit more with each seal opened, exposing the judgments that God has reserved for the time of tribulation, bit by bit. The first four of the seven seals open, releasing what are known as the four horsemen of the apocalypse, because the judgments appear metaphorically as a horse and rider, leaving destruction in their path. The first seal, Revelation 6, verses 1 and 2. And when the Lamb opened one of the seals, I heard, as it were the noise of thunder, one of the four beasts saying, Come and see. And I looked, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him. And he went forth conquering, and to conquer. The second seal, a great war breaks out in the world when the Lamb releases the second seal. This is represented by a rider on a fiery red horse, wielding a great sword.
Steve Cioccolani said the first horse was Jab, and the second horse is going to cause fires everywhere. And he said that about 5 or 6 months ago. And look at the fires everywhere. So it's from the red horse.
Revelation 6, verses 3 and 4. And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, Come and see. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. The fiery red horse of the second seal represents chaos following the initial period of peace that precedes the tribulation. The world will degenerate into violence, with people trying to destroy each other. The third seal, famine, results from the breaking of the third of the seven seals. Revelation 6, verses 5 and 6. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, Come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. The fourth seal. When the fourth seal is broken, John sees a pale horse. Its rider was named Death, and Hades followed close behind. As a result of the fourth seal, 1/4 of the world's population is killed by sword, famine, and pestilence, as well as by the wild beasts of the earth. Revelation 6, verses 7 and 8. And when he had opened the
That's interesting that the wild beast gets mentioned.
fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, Come and see. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse. And his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. And power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. Don't forget.
Okay, they do that on God's behalf, not the devil's behalf. I used to think they do that for the devil's behalf, but that's obviously God.
To leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Now that you've done that, let's get to the video. The fifth seal. The fifth seal of the scroll indicates those who would be martyred throughout the tribulation for their faith in Christ. Revelation 6, verses 9 to 11. When the Lamb broke the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been martyred for the word of God and for remaining faithful in their testimony. They cried out in a loud voice, "Ha!" How long, sovereign Lord, holy and true, until you judge the inhabitants of the earth and avenge our blood? Then each of them was given a white robe, and they were told to rest a little longer, until the number of their fellow servants and their brothers, who were to be killed as they had been, was completed. The sixth seal. When the Lamb of God breaks the sixth seal, a great earthquake occurs, causing massive destruction and extraordinary astronomical phenomena. The sun turns black as sackcloth, the moon becomes red as blood, and the heavens recede like a scroll being rolled up, and every mountain and island were moved from their places. Revelation 6, verses 12 to 14. I watched as the Lamb opened the sixth seal. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black as sackcloth, and the moon became like blood. Then the stars of heaven fell to the earth, like unripe figs falling from a fig tree, shaken by a strong wind. The sky receded like a scroll being rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved from its place. Survivors of the sixth seal, regardless of their social status, seek shelter in caves and call to the mountains and rocks. Fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of their wrath has come, and who can stand? A pause in the book of Revelation follows the opening of 6 of the 7 seals. The seventh seal, Revelation 8, verse 1. When the Lamb broke the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. The judgments that led to the end of the tribulation are now evident in the scroll, and they are so severe that all of heaven falls silent. The seventh seal clearly announces the beginning of the next round of judgments, as John immediately sees 7 angels with 7 trumpets ready to sound. An 8th angel takes a censer and burns much incense, indicating the petitions of God's people. Revelation 8, verse 5. Then the angel filled the censer with fire from the altar and hurled it to the earth. And there were peals of thunder, voices, flashes of lightning, and an earthquake. When the judgments of the 7 seals are completed, the second phase of the tribulation, which includes the judgments of the 7 trumpets, will begin. The 7 trumpets in Revelation, chapters 8 and 9. John describes a time close to the end of the world when angels will sound 7 trumpets. Each trumpet heralds the arrival of a new round of judgments upon the peoples of the earth. The 7 trumpets are described in Revelation 8 and 9, as well as in Revelation 11, verses 15 to 19. The trumpets represent...
Yeah, you're right. I can't play that. I'll risk community standard strikes.
Disasters. The judgments announced by the 7 trumpets will occur during the tribulation period, at the end of the world. 7 angels who stand in the presence of God are given 7 trumpets, which will be used to trigger another round of judgments. The first trumpet, Revelation 8, verse 7. The first angels...
I was never here. I think when the final outpouring of God, the big outpouring of God in the last days pours out on us, I think people like us will be able to translate. Like I'll say, oh, take me to Shawnee's place. Or however they do it. It happens in the Bible. People get translated. So I reckon we'll be able to do that. So we'll be able to visit each other.
Sounded his trumpet, and there came hail and fire mixed with blood, and it was hurled down upon the earth. A third of the earth was burned up, a third of the trees were burned up, and all the green grass was burned up. This plague destroys a third of the world's trees and consumes all the grass. This judgment bears some resemblance to the seventh plague of Egypt. The second trumpet, Revelation 8, verses 8 and 9. Then the second angel sounded his trumpet, and something like a large mountain, all ablaze, was thrown into the sea. A third of the sea turned into blood, a third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. In heaven a second angel sounded a trumpet, and the result is that something like a huge mountain, all in flames, was thrown into the sea. A third of the sea transforms into blood, a third of the ships sink, and a third of ocean life dies. This judgment is somewhat similar to the first plague of Egypt. Revelation 8, verses 10 and 11. Then the third angel sounded his trumpet, and a great star fell from heaven, burning like a torch. It fell on a third of the rivers and on the springs of water.
If I did that, eyes would grab me and say, "We got one from Australia, guys. Let's put him on the news."
The name of the star was Wormwood. It made a third of the waters bitter, and many people died from drinking the bitter water. The judgment of the third trumpet is similar to the second, except it affects the world's freshwater lake.
Yeah, that's true, Vas, but they don't know that. I'm not embarrassed about my record at all. It's pretty extensive, and I've done a lot of time, but I am where I am because of that.
And rivers instead of the ocean.
I sort of reckon I got tested like Job a bit.
Specifically, a large star burning like a torch falls from the sky and poisons a third of the water supply. Revelation 8, verses 12 and 13. Then the fourth angel sounded his trumpet, and a third of the sun was struck, as well as a third of the moon and a third of the stars, so that a third of them turned dark. A third of the day was without light, as well as a third of the night. Then I looked and heard an eagle flying in midair, calling out in a loud voice, "Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, because of the other trumpet blasts of the three angels who are yet to sound."
Your business is unique, so
I wouldn't go near Budweiser Light though, Di.
Action. Sophos offers a tailored approach to fit your cybersecurity needs. Your business charts the course, and Sophos clears the path to your success. That's a win-win. That's Sophos.
The MG Independent Year sale is on now. Visit your MG dealership today. T's and C's apply.
After the judgment of the fourth trumpet, John observes a special warning given by an eagle flying through the sky.
Yep.
This eagle cries out in a loud voice, "Woe."
But I truly believe that. And if we don't meet on earth, I reckon we're all going to be sat at the same table at the wedding feast, because we all do this under Christ. And I reckon we'll have our little own table where we all join there.
Woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, because of what will happen when the last three angels sound their trumpets. For this reason, the fifth, sixth, and seventh trumpets are referred to as the three woes. The fifth trumpet, the angel of the abyss, serves as king of these demonic locusts. In Hebrew, he is known as Abaddon, and in Greek as Apollyon, which means destroyer. These beings will be given authority to torture anyone who does not have the seal of God. The pain they will cause will be so excruciating that the sufferers will wish to die. Abaddon.
See, and you know, when they say we're not appointed to wrath, so we won't be here, that's not true. Because we're here when these guys get stung by the locust for 5 months. So we're watching God's wrath on them, but we're not part of it. We haven't been raptured. So I think they've really got that so wrong.
Apollyon is the ruler of the abyss and king of these demonic locusts. The sixth trumpet, the sixth trumpet, and the second woe heralds the arrival of another demon.
King over the locusts, which means the locusts are sentient. Wow, that's pretty heavy.
Horde. When the sixth trumpet sounds, a voice from the altar of God requests the release of the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates. These 4 evil angels command a supernatural cavalry of tens of thousands to kill a third of man.
Vast, this one always reminds me of you because you picked up how it was dry already. So then 4 ill angels are already out. It always reminds me of you, this one.
Kind, the 7th trumpet. Then the 7th angel sounded his trumpet, and there were loud voices in heaven saying, "The kingdom of the world has become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ, and he will reign forever and ever." Revelation 11, verse 15. The judgments of the 7 trumpets come to an end. Everything is prepared for the 7 angels with the 7 bowls of God's wrath. These angels are standing inside the now open temple, ready to move forward and bring the final judgments upon the earth. The 7 bowls of Revelation. The concept of the bowls, often referred to as the bowls of wrath or vials of wrath, is found in the book of Revelation, which is the last book of the Bible. Essentially, these bowls are like containers of God's wrath. At this time, people have already done much evil, especially under the leadership of someone called the Antichrist. Before the 7 bowls are poured out, there is a series of other events and judgments. The first bowl, Revelation 16, begins with a powerful voice from the temple telling this.
Vast, but the pre-tribbers love to say we're not appointed to wrath. And there's the proof we don't have to be. We can watch the wrath poured out on others. So that concept's wrong. I didn't know that till this morning.
7 angels go and pour out on the earth the 7 bowls of God's wrath. Then the first angel went and poured out his bowl on the earth, and foul and painful sores appeared on the people who had the mark of the beast and worshipped its image. The second bowl, following the first bowl, which brought painful sores upon those who had the mark of the beast, the heavens prepared for another significant act. The angel.
That's true, Vast. I read the Bible with no influence at all, with no denominations. And when I read it, I concluded that we're here until Armageddon. That's when we get raptured at Armageddon. At the brink of defeat, that's when Christ comes back to rescue us. And that's what I thought without any input elsewhere. And I think I'm more correct than them.
Moved forward. In his hand held the bowl filled with a mysterious liquid. Then the second angel poured out his bowl on the sea, and it turned into blood like that of a dead person.
Yeah, that was
and every living thing in the sea died. The third bowl. The rivers and water springs are not spared either. They too are turned into blood. Water, the essence of life, is transformed into a symbol of death. Then the third angel poured out his bowl on the rivers and the springs of water, and they became blood. This complete contamination contrasts with the partial pollution of a third of the fresh water shown in Revelation 8. The fourth bowl. It was the time for the fourth bowl. An angel moved forward, holding the next vessel of judgment. The target of this bowl was neither the earth nor the water, but the very sun that lights up the sky. Revelation 16, verse 8. And the fourth angel poured out his bowl on the sun, and it was allowed to scorch people with fire. Suddenly, things began to change. The sun, which had always been a source of light, warmth, and sustenance, was given a new and dreadful power. The fifth bowl. Under the command of the heavens, the fifth angel departed, directing his bowl not at the seas, mountains, or rivers, but directly at the throne of the beast, the epicenter of wickedness.
Wow.
Revelation 16, verse 10. And the fifth angel poured out his bowl on the throne of the beast, and his kingdom was plunged into darkness, and people gnawed their tongues in agony because of their excruciating suffering and severe torment. When this bowl was poured out, it caused the sun to disappear, turning the realm of the beast completely dark. Imagine a world without any light, where it is so dark that you can see nothing. This darkness was not calm or comforting. It felt heavy and left people truly uncomfortable. The profound darkness, however, was just the beginning of their torment. The sixth bowl. In the hands of the sixth angel was the bowl full of God's judgment. It was clear that this vessel had a divine purpose, and the angel understood the gravity of its content. The entire cosmos seemed to pause in anticipation of what was about to happen. Revelation 16, verse 12. And the sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its waters were dried up to prepare the way for the kings from the east. As the waters of the great river Euphrates dwindled, what used to block the path now became a clear way. The Euphrates River, an extension of the Fertile Crescent area, is a significant landmark in the scriptures and a valuable resource in the Middle East as it flows through Turkey, Syria, and Iraq. The seventh bowl. In the heavens, the scene was dramatic. The seventh angel, with the last bowl of God's punishment, prepared to pour it out. This was not just any bowl, it was like the final chapter of all the judgments that came before it, truly showing how severe and final God's decision was. Revelation 16, verses 1 to 17. Then the seventh angel poured out his bowl into the air, and a loud voice came out of the temple from the throne of God, saying, "It is done, it is finished, the moment has come." The book of Revelation talks about the end of the world in God's final plan, and with each bowl poured, the urgency and severity of God's judgment become clearer. The purpose of the events described is not to cause fear, but to emphasize the significant consequences of a society that rejects its creator. The story presents God's wrath, and the judgments serve as a profound testimony of God's righteous indignation against the wickedness and rebellion of humanity. As each bowl is poured out, the earth experiences unprecedented calamities, from painful sores afflicting people, Revelation 16, verse 2, to the sun burning the earth with intense heat, Revelation 16, verse 8. Let us pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for your guidance and your protection. We ask for forgiveness for our sins, both known and unknown. We ask that you guide us from now until eternity.
What else did I have? That was it right here. Hang on, Moo.
Get smart. Replace your old water heater with a Solar Heart system and get up to a $1,000 trade-in.
Whatever you think, there's a banana to make your body sing.
Bloodbath. Thousands of rent stabilized. A spiritual shift is happening, my friends. This is Tony. Hope you're all doing well. We're going to get into a ton of stuff in this video. We have, of course, something happening in France. We'll get into that. We also have what's going on with Joe Rogan, something rather curious. We'll get into that as well. And actually a ton of other stuff. What's going on with Bruce Springsteen, power, outages in a number of places in America and other places around the world, including Europe.
Okay, this is only a day old, guys.
Let's just get into this. We'll start with this here. This is rather curious. McDonald's restricts dine-in to age 21. Check this out.
Fairfax County McDonald's is restricting the age of customers who can dine inside. Good evening, I'm Scott Booman. We first showed you this sign last night at 11 o'clock. It states, if you're over 21, you must ring a doorbell to be let in. This is at the McDonald's in Franconia near Thomas Edison.
Of course, this is in Chicago. We're talking about apparently students getting into altercations, apparently at a number of McDonald's in that area. And it covers actually more than one place. It covers this area of Fairfax, Virginia, which I was just showing you. It covers Chicago. It covers actually a number of big cities around America where they're not allowing people under the age of 21 to actually get.
Diane, you can get these rocks where you can filter water through it, and it filters it rather well. That's the only thing I haven't got. I've got a few months of food, but I've got nothing to purify the water. So I might get Gabe to look into that.
Into the restaurant, unless they're accompanied by with someone that is a 21 or older. So you got that going on. You got this story here. Buy now, pay later usage for groceries nearly doubles as consumers struggle with food costs. Now, apparently, a lot of people are putting their food on the charge card, the credit card.
Wow.
So you got people going to fast food or supermarkets using credit. You got to be age 21 in numerous cities to even get in the restaurants now. So you got all these strange stories like this. And these are just the beginning stories. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna get into a ton here. You have your thousands of rent Stabilized. New York City apartments face foreclosure and tenant bloodbath. Thousands of rent-stabilized apartments in New York City are under the threat of foreclosure as an increasing number of landlords stop paying their mortgages, making the coveted units even more scarce. So we're seeing now a lot of businesses are not even able to pay the rent, and this is causing them to lose their buildings in this case. And that's in New York City. You have, of course, a number of store closures happening with JCPenney's.
Yeah, Mum. Bars, Mum's going really well, actually. Thanks for asking. She's spoken too much, but apart from that, she's going really well.
You have Rite Aid, Joanne, 440.
I'm the one who's been through the wars the last month or so. It's been a really bad and long year for me so far.
First, I mean, it's actually a lot more than just those three. I've seen numerous stories of them closing, and I think this is still the remnants of the last 4 years, sort of the momentum of that, while we try to turn this whole thing around, right?
Yeah.
But what's really interesting is we got this story.
No problems, it's part of life. You go up and down, but I have had a bad year.
Of French President Emmanuel Macron, where he apparently gets a little bit of it in his face from his wife. Check this out. I like how he waves afterwards. He's like waving afterwards, like, oh my God, you guys.
Diane, did you post a link where Macron and the British Prime Minister and someone else are snorting the coke? You played that, didn't you?
After his wife, of course, pushes him in the face. Now, this is not the first controversy for, Macron. I mean, you had this one not too long ago. What was
there
this?
it
This
is.
was earlier
Speaking
this
of
month,
the devil.
2 weeks ago. Then you also had, even before that, people talking about, of course, his wife, saying certain things. I'm sure a lot of you already know I'm referring to, saying maybe he or she, I guess we don't know, right? This is basically what a lot of people are talking about.
Wow.
So we're going to get into, like I said, a ton of more stuff as we get into this video. We're going to get into.
So he just implied Macron's wife's a tranny. That's what he just implied.
What's going on with the economy. We have also a number of big stories. We have some power outages. We got what happened to Bruce Springsteen. It's totally hilarious. We'll get into that. And Joe Rogan, a big story about Joe Rogan as well. Coming to faith, apparently. We'll get into that as well. First, I got to mention food supply, 25-year shelf life. Link is in the description, 3 months worth for $4.97. You're going to definitely want to get that if you have not already. Link is in the description for that. You've seen all the things happening over the last few weeks, actually few years. We just had multiple outages over in France, Germany, and other countries. Now we're starting to see it in America. I'm going to get into those stories in a little bit. It's always wise to be prepared. Also, this book here, The Lost Ways, how your great-great-grandfather lived without electricity, how to build a cellar, do things around the house like they did in the good old days, hundreds of pages illustrated. You're going to definitely need that book if you have not already gotten it. When the power goes out, you're not going to be able to get it. $37, get the printed version. Link is in the description. Also, go check out my website, GR Videos. Got lots of great stuff over there. Let's get back to the deal. So we have here, our president warns Apple and Samsung that 25% smartphone tariffs could land in June. So our president is indeed trying to bring more jobs back to America. I think this is a good thing. We'll see how this all pans out. Personally, I think it does take a long time to turn this Titanic around. We're still going towards the iceberg. Actually, I think we already partially hit it. But the fact is, our president is upending the global economy by doing all these tariffs. And I think this is a good thing in the end. I think it's going to turn out well. We have here him taking $3 billion in frozen Harvard money grants and giving the money to trade schools instead. I think that's a good reapplication of the money. So that story just came out recently as well. You have, of course, also Walmart with layoffs. I think it's like 1,500. This is while they're also trying to raise prices at Walmart currently. You have here Walmart, Subaru, Mattel. These are the brands raising prices due to the tariffs.
Diane, they don't seem to be a bad price either. Like $200, you'll get one of them filters that'll do the job. That's what it looks like.
And of course, there are some companies that are not raising the prices. Very interesting. You have Home Depot, for example, not raising their prices at all. Home Depot, and there's actually a few other ones, not as big, that are doing the same thing. And actually, a lot of companies haven't come out and said anything, which means I kind of feel like they're probably by default not raising prices. Home Depot doesn't plan to raise prices due to tariff, but some items may disappear. What I think this whole thing is, my friends, is I think they're actually trying to raise the prices in a lot of these stores and try to blame it on a president. I think because if you look at these stats for the tariffs, there is a 90-day pause, not a 20-day pause, 10% for the 90-day period for China. Okay, now it's actually both directions, and if you actually look at the former numbers, they're actually slightly worse before. It was 10% generally speaking, but there were certain items that were higher than 10%. So to me, this tells me that this was just an excuse to raise prices because of inflation. This is my thoughts on it. These guys simply don't want to raise prices due to inflation. So they're literally replacing, if you replace the word tariffs with inflation, that might be a better explanation, at least in my mind, as to why they're all doing this. Because actually, in reality, they could have waited those 2 weeks, not bought anything, nothing. I mean, there was like 2 weeks of problems with buying from China, I think 2 or 3 weeks. And there's a holiday every year in China where there's 2 to 3 weeks where you can't buy anything. What does Walmart do during that time? Well, they buy beforehand, right? So they probably knew that these tariffs were coming, and they probably bought some stuff in advance and were able to weather the whole thing. So they wouldn't have to raise prices because of tariffs. I think it's a game of inflation where they want to blame something else. And Home Depot simply doesn't want to raise prices because apparently inflation is not bad enough yet. This is my thoughts on the entire thing so far. And getting over to some of these other things, apparently Elon is now saying he's resuming working 24/7 for his companies. There was an outage, I think, a couple days ago on X, and it's obviously been restored at this point. But so you had that story. He's been apparently decided to, spend all this time on his companies again and get away from the whole Doge thing. And he did what he does with his companies. Generally what he does is he sets up a system and then he lets it run on its own. So that's basically what he did with the whole Doge thing. Market meltdown and recession incoming, warns former BlackRock fund manager Edward Dowd. Now, a former BlackRock fund manager just issued a major warning on the U.S. economy in an interview on market disruptors. Edward Dowd forecast an incoming recession, market meltdown driven in part by a housing crisis and a bursting AI bubble. Now, it's interesting that he said AI because we do have a video of some of the newest AI. Check this out. This is crazy.
Car show. Let's see some opinions.
This is AI.
Man, the acceleration is crazy.
The entire
you
thing.
Look far, step on the pedal, and you are there.
I feel safe with him in an SUV.
Does that look
and
real?
It seems to be like the right type of car.
It looks pretty real, don't it? This is the new AI. I've seen some hilarious videos of people, at the top being in prison. They used AI to make it, and it looks pretty real. So yeah, this is where AI is now. It's doing quite well. They've got way better at making it look realistic. And I do agree, though, that there is a recession coming. It's super obvious. We're well past due for it. But I don't think it's because of tariffs. I think the tariffs are actually a solution, as I mentioned before. I was getting over to the thing is, though, you've seen kind of how their message is. They want you to think certain things, so they put them out, right? Then we got this story about Bruce Springsteen.
The story's good.
We have famous musician Pete Townsend.
I saw this. Bruce Springsteen sat on his bum on a speaker and gave a big lecture to the audience. And now he's crash and burn like Robert De Niro. Yeehaw.
Who came from England, criticizing Bruce Springsteen. We also have this guy who also came from Britain, criticizing him as well. Check this out.
A slag off this country to criticize America in front of
booing fans from England. How disgraceful. I tell you what, why doesn't he stay in England? I'll stay here, because I've got work to do to make California truly golden again. That's why I'm running for governor, and I'm running for governor as a proud American. So I may not have been
Oh, you're telling them to stay out, but you're from another country.
Bruce Springsteen, but I...
Now that was Steve Hilton, former Fox News host and commentator who's running for governor of California. But we also have Pete Townsend, who is a former British musician who also has recently criticized Bruce as well. Here's what he had to say.
He was from The Who.
You told us you want change. So when you shop at Woolworths, you'll now find lower shelf prices on hundreds of family essentials. Lower shelf prices. It's a fresh commitment to you from the fresh food people.
Okay, Shawnee, good night. I'm out after this as well, guys.
Well, your party plans may be up in the air, but at least your insurance is sorted.
Let's get you with Budget Direct.
Get off-road or tour in style with the Silverado 1500 and enjoy 3 years of free scheduled servicing. Don't miss out. Terms and conditions apply.
Be confident in your smile.
Rock legend Pete Townsend of The Who says Bruce Springsteen ruined everyone's night when he brought politics on the stage. He is a bit overrated to begin with. He's kind of a bloke who should just shut up and play. This is kind of the sentiment a lot of people have, sort of like what we saw with Rachel Zegler and other people also in Hollywood. We have here Adam Carolla holds nothing back on Bruce Springsteen as well. And check this out.
And Trump, who's winning this so far?
Well, here's a little experiment. Remember 20 years ago, you think about Bruce Springsteen and you think about Robert De Niro, and you're like, I don't know what those guys are thinking, but they're geniuses. I never hear them do interviews. I have no idea what their intellect is, but they have to be geniuses. And then they both started sharing their opinions in like the last 20 minutes, and now we know they're buffoons and fools.
It's that's kind of true, man, actually.
Oh, what a
For
bunch of
long time,
buffoons.
I had a lot of respect for Robert De Niro. And Bruce Springsteen, I used to like him back in the old days, but then you started seeing what he really stands
I think De Niro's done too many gangster movies. I think he thinks he's a gangster in real life now.
for. And you're just like, seriously, man, you're supposed to be about America, and you're literally the opposite of what you allegedly stand for. So you have also Kid Rock as well talking about this. Check this out.
Well, what do you think of that?
Garbage. TDS, the highest level. I mean, he's over there creating peace in the Middle East. You know, one of the places that could possibly erupt and send the world into turmoil. He's over there getting it done. Not only, you know, getting great deals for our country, which I've told everybody. I got people at high levels working.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Some of the criticism coming from these people in Hollywood, clearly they have derangement. But then we have this interesting clip from NFL quarterback Aaron Rodgers talking about Ellen, DeGeneres and her show. Notice how this building looks kind of like this building. Let me see if I can get it on the screen.
Wow, that's a good
This is from
pickup.
Aaron Rodgers. He mentioned this. He pointed out how this looks very similar to this. And then you also got the palm trees, which you got palm trees here. Of course, it could be just
Wow, that's a great pickup.
just a mere coincidence. This is what Joe Rogan said, but it seems a little too alike for it to be a coincidence in my mind. Also, she did leave the country. And there is something else that Joe Rogan recently started doing that's kind of interesting. Check this out. This is Wes Hoff talking about it.
Joe Rogan and I have had on and off
communication since then. I can tell you for a fact that he is attending a church, and that that has been a consistent thing. And so, things are happening. And
wow, man. And I showed you guys a clip recently where he was literally saying almost the opposite of what he would have said 10 years ago. He was questioning the Big Bang, saying, do we really got proof of this? But then saying that the resurrection was something far more easy to believe. So he actually is flipped on that. From what I can tell, 10 years ago, he would have said the exact opposite of that, because he was all about trusting, the science back then. We have here another interesting story. There's a man who apparently worked at Generac, who was a believer, a devout Christian, and was reportedly fired from his job when they discovered that he refused to use someone's, of course, pronouns. And so they fired him from that job. And I think that's pretty ridiculous. I mean, you should be able to choose what you want to say, even if, whether you believe it or not, what they want. I mean, even if you believe in it, you should be able to say, I don't want to say it, right? This is how I look at it.
I started at Generac as
Yeah.
a entry-level customer support.
That doesn't surprise me about De Niro. He's not very bright. Trump was right about that. He's not very bright. And his sons are full on bats for the other side and dresses like him, if you know what I mean.
Within 3 years, I had as many promotions, like one every year, to the point where within 3 years, I was actually in leadership and I had 13 people directly reporting to me. My performance reviews were glowing.
Spencer Wimmer worked at Generac for almost 5 years and earned excellent performance reviews. But when he told his supervisor that his deeply held Christian beliefs prevented him from using the preferred names.
Yeah, so I mean, he lost his job over that. Then you got this crazy story. I couldn't even believe this. Charlie Kirk has been labeled by the SPLC to be part of one of those anti, of course, GOV type of groups, and put him right on the map next to this group right here. I'm like, what? I would think that this guy, if anybody, would be the last one that would be on that list on the conservative side, because of, I mean, he's obviously very welcoming of other people. He doesn't have any sort of, from what I can tell, hate. Seems like a really nice guy overall. Don't agree with everything he believes in or says, but he's not a bad dude. And so that's just kind of bizarre, right? And at any rate, with regard to this whole thing with Springsteen cover band gets new gig after Tom's River Bar booted them out. So apparently they were booted out of a venue because of what he said in Europe. But then another, obviously on the left venue, picked up his.
I've been following the P. Diddy trial. Geez, there's a lot of bad stuff happening there. He'll never get released. Just from what I see already, he's already gone. And they offered him 15 with 10 on the bottom 3 days before the trial, and he knocked it back. Now he'll never get released. And look at the whistleblowers. Leonardo DiCaprio and all them sort of people.
Picked up the tab, apparently. This is getting ridiculous, this world. And here you have Bruce Springsteen, what he said actually at the concert. Let's play this. All right, so what's kind of weird about that, like he had more cheering. He got some cheering on that, but he actually had probably double that on everything else he was saying before that. So, of course, a lot of people already knew where Bruce Springsteen stood on this. So anybody going to his concert probably isn't going to be a fan of our president here in America. But at any rate, we're making a game right now. I've talked about it before, Noah VR. It's also going to be called Apocryphon Genesis. We have 150 shares that have been added to this. If you want to get involved and earn some money when we release the game, take part in the profits. We have 33% of the Noah VR profits will be set aside for all the shareholders that get involved. And if you already bought one of these shares, you're actually already going to make more money because we increased the percentage. But we now have another 150 shares at 400 apiece. If you're interested, click the link in the description. You can get involved in that as well. We have also, getting on to the next story, we have here what's going on in New Orleans. This happened a day before yesterday, we were seeing a lot of stories. Actually, let me pull up this here. So we have had a lot of power outages of recent in America. And they had one in Louisiana too. So they had New Orleans. Oh, I mean, that is New Orleans. I don't know what I was thinking of. It was Houston. That's the one I was trying to think about. You had 100. Let me see if I can get this pulled up. So we have here New Orleans. It was 100,000 people with no power. It's now been fully restored. I think today you have here, yeah, it was 100,000 customers. Okay, so that has been restored. And then we had, of course, also, it's called a malicious act. Let's see if we got on the screen better. Power cut in Nice in second day of outages in southern France. So this is interesting because we had outages. Okay, we've had so many different things with regards to France and Germany and all these places. What was the other one? Okay, I showed you guys this already, right? I'm assuming I showed it to you. Maybe I didn't show it to you. Let me show you that in a second here. Okay, so with regards to France, we had, what do we have? We had the phones go out, the internet go out like 4 days ago. We had a hacking in England like a little bit before that, like 10 days ago. We had the power go out in like 4 or 5 countries. I think it was 5 countries, like 3 weeks ago. And now they had another power outage. And I've been talking about how I thought this would be coming to America next. We're already starting to see some outages here as well. And there is also some other strange things I noticed also that I'm going to get into in a new video that has to do with that volcano. We got some weird predictions coming next. This summer is going to be crazy. I mean, I think we're all going through stuff. Spiritually, I've been going through something. Someone's trying to stop me from doing videos, my friends. The devil don't like what we're doing here. So God is in control, though. God is protecting us. We're going to get through all of this. Kind of wondering what some of you guys think. Let me know. Well, I should show you this too. I thought I already showed it, but here you have Macron. I'm pretty sure he yeah, that was his wife, by the way. He waves. And apparently there's been stories of her doing stuff like this to him for a long time, but so it's unfortunate that that's happening. But I mean, he's been caught with a lot of other weird things. I showed you guys the other thing. Oh yeah, let me show you this. This is crazy. Check this out. Young man makes a plasma type of device. Check this out. This is crazy. Let's see if we get on the screen.
What the heck? What's he gonna shoot?
That was 10% power. Check this, 20%. He built this in his backyard.
No way. What?
Metal. And that was 20% power. He built this with car parts and scrap metal. That's like insane. I've never seen anything like that. And of course, they're telling it.
Okay, that's got to be BS, guys, surely.
So we're going to have tons of hurricane activity now. They're already predicting this. Kind of wonder what some of you guys think. Let me know in the comment section. Well, thanks for watching.
You told us you want change. So when you shop at Woolworths, you'll now find lower shelf prices on hundreds of family essentials.
Did you see the light that blew up the George guy's face? I don't know how I've done that. Oh, that's over.
A spiritual shift is happening, my friends.
Okay, guys, this is over. See you tomorrow, Mike from around the world. And cloned Gary Wayne. See you tomorrow, guys.